All right, today we are talking... The third season just wrapped on Sunday. We're recording this on Wednesday as soon as we could.
Busy boys.
Busy boys.
Busy boys.
We weren't able to do weekly recaps of the show. Frankly, I'm glad we didn't, just because we got to sort of enjoy it. One of my favorite things about like week to week viewership of a television show is like that week in between. Mm-hmm. And with this one of my favorite bits was like right after the episodes would end, Tyler would text me and he'd be like, it's that time of the night where Barry ends and I just can't wait for the next one. And I'm just super happy. And this season was really, really interesting and really fun in a totally dark and messed up way. I feel like this season was like, I mean, it has tonal consistency with the first two seasons, but it felt like a departure in a lot of different ways. It felt like Bill Hader was after something a little different this season. Jack, what did you think of season 3?
I don't know if the show's a comedy anymore. I think it started off that way. Too, yeah. I don't think it is anymore. I think it is one of the best shows on TV right now. Truly love it. Great stuff.
We only talk about the best shows, I think.
As we probably should. But your thoughts on season 3?
Oh, yeah. No, I love season 3. I think I had a lot of issues with season 3, which we'll talk about. But then by the end of the season, I'm like, oh, those issues are actually like fixed. And this was just an interesting departure from the formula of season 1 and 2 a little bit. I'm very happy with some things, which we'll get into. But again, what Jack said, like we're not in Kansas anymore. This isn't really a comedy anymore, which is like, not necessarily a bad thing, but it is going to be annoying in the Emmys when it's like best comedy goes to Barry.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, okay, it's
like, yeah,
where was the joke?
Difficult category.
Where's the joke?
But again, I think the show has always played well on irony, and I feel like this whole season's ironic. The first 2 seasons are ironic. Both dramatic and just in general. But yeah, there was occasionally though, and this is an issue with the first 2 seasons too, I think. Sometimes they have like this big cliffhanger and they don't go farther with it. For example, let's just say spoilers from here on out. Most of our discussions are spoilers. But at the end of episode 6, I believe it is, Chris's wife poisons Barry.
Yes.
And then she disappears.
Yeah.
She never comes back into the season.
Totally.
There's just some stuff like that. Imagine poisoning the man that killed your husband. You know this because you talked to Kenneth Goulet. And it's weird that we're starting here, but it's genuinely a question I've had since the end of episode 6, because like that is a huge cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Not just because Barry's poisoned, but also because it's like, oh, Chris's wife like knows and she's out for revenge, but then she like runs away.
Yeah.
And you don't see her for the rest of the season. Like I was expecting her to call the cops or something or do this or that.
Yeah. I think the resolution of that whole like Fuchs sicking the whole mob on Barry thing is it's sort of left out there. Yeah. I do think that structurally that was a really interesting choice for them to set up Fuchs versus Barry being the thing of that season, and to have him just send everybody from Barry's past.
I did love that. Almost
as a distraction for the fact that it was going to be Kusno at the end. That is his undoing, which I think is smart. And
Chekhov's Kusno.
Chekhov's Kusno.
You introduce Kusno in season 1, kill off his love interest in season 1 finale. He'll be back into season 3.
He puts Barry away at season 3. No, I agree with that. I do think, to the point of like this was a comedy and it's now a drama. I think if you were to ask like Bill Hader and the creators, they probably would say, what most artists would say, like, it's not really either,
But I think that's most TV now.
But also I think that what's really interesting is the character of Barry, and I think a lot of the characters on the show this season have made that switch. They don't do that much different than they have been. It's just sort of the direction of the episodes. And it's like you said, it was pitched and set up in such a funny way, but Barry's remained pretty consistent with like who he is. Like the premise of the show is a hitman going into an acting class, and that's a funny setup. But the reality of it was always as dark as it is now. It's just that we're now like fully seeing the effects of
now
his
we're
damage.
like, oh, Barry is a bad person who murders people.
Right, which we knew.
But
it was an endearing quality and a comedic premise.
But then now it's also like, but if this is true, then what else is true? The people he kills have families.
Right.
And that has a lot of has a lot of karma to it.
Yes.
To put it simply.
And the consequences of his actions, that's like the big thing of this whole season. Like I think that the idea of like violence just creates more violence, and the idea of like you can't run away from your past, and like can a person change? Those are the things that Hader was really after this season, and was really, you could tell that he was captivated by these ideas.
And I love the line "starting now." That's the finale's title, and that's a reoccurring line throughout the season. Like after he kills Moss at the end, and he goes back to bed with Sally, he goes, okay, starting now.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there is no starting now, because there's never not going to be something he has to face.
It's like when everyone's like, my diet starts on Monday.
I was going to say that.
Just never, it's always next Monday after that. This is the same case with Barry and not murdering people.
Yeah. Well, imagine the broccoli is always just going to try to kill you. There's also a thing too in there. But on that point, while it's like, I just think the whole Chris dynamic was so interesting in season 1. And I think it was the first time the show did something where I was like, okay, that is a decision Barry had to make.
Yes.
And it's not the right decision, morally right decision, but it is the best decision for him in that moment.
Yeah.
So when Chris's wife got brought back this season, I was like, oh, this could be a whole season.
Yeah.
But that's the same with any character that had like a family member come back this season. And I think the main purpose of that wasn't to resolve any of that. It was just to like add more onto the shit pile that like Barry has to deal with this season.
Yeah.
Which also includes Sally. Like the whole first half is like about Sally, and I kind of forgot about it because there's so much other shit going on in the back half.
Right. Which I think is interesting because like I love Sally. Sally gets a lot of shit online. I do think that this season they made some choices with Sally to lean into like how much we really dislike her. I think they made that choice with most of the characters. But yeah, the first half, like you said, it's like so Sally centric, and by the end of the season, it's like this TV show is not important anymore.
Right. Yeah,
like Barry is a mass murderer.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of motorcycle bandits coming after him, and he's got to drive down the freeway in Los Angeles.
Great sequence. Do we want to talk about Sally for a bit since we're on this topic?
Sure. Yeah.
No, I mean, Sally is like great this season. It also that sequence where the reviews come out for her TV pilot and / like season 1, and she's just like overcome with emotion, and like it's a character who we followed for about 2 seasons, and I feel like she's always been about the art and stuff.
Yeah.
But like it's so realistic because like some people just want the fame, and it was like clear in that moment to me that that's all Sally ever wanted, was nothing more than the fame. And again, I think that's not like a character I like, but it is a very interesting character choice, and it definitely like lines up with Sally as a character.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating, and that little bit of acting is like, wow, that's.
And from the beginning, she was like, "Do you think I'm going to be a star?" To Barry, and Barry's like, "Yeah, of course," because he's never met an actor in his life.
Right. Yeah. He's like, "You're the most talented person I've ever met."
Yeah, he's like, "Of course you're going to make it." Because like,
why wouldn't you?
And I think what's important also is she is actually quite good at the things that she does. So she should be getting this TV show. She should be acting in things, and like she is a credible performer. It's not a pipe dream like a lot of the other actors in the class. It's like they're not really going to make it.
Yeah, like Barry's roommates.
Exactly. Who are hilarious, but
Sarah Goldberg gives just a great performance.
Yes, incredible performance.
This is one of my favorite performances on TV going. It's just, I think she's so good. She's just so good at acting.
Yeah,
like she's just. It's such a simple statement, but like, just truly great at acting.
Yeah, well, in a show full of like character actors who have been doing it for decades, like Sarah Goldberg was like a theater actor before she did this. And again, this is one of her first TV shows, and she's incredible in it. And in a sea of character actors, she is doing just as good of a job, if not better.
Totally.
Because again, her role's probably the most complex of like everyone in Barry. Like everyone has their thing, and now she's kind of in the middle of like, she's the closest person to Barry in both worlds, if that makes sense.
And she also has to play like, because most of her stuff this season is where the comedy was, because they go very broad with a lot of the TV stuff. Like you can tell that Hader just really was frustrated with like some of the structures of television and making television, because a lot of it was just satirical. Like the executives don't know what they're talking about. They're asking for things and they don't even know what it means. Like the algorithm is controlling the show's future. Like
we want it to be more like,
right, the Vanessa Bayer scene. All that stuff is like very, very broad and like very comedic. And so she has to do that, but also be in scenes with Barry. And like, she has to like really carry a lot of that like dual tone that the show has. And also, you know, Bill Hader is a terrific actor. We'll talk about him in a moment. I think this is the best he's ever been.
I don't think we need to talk about Bill Hader.
You're right.
No.
But, you know, even though he is a great actor, like he's not as well seasoned of an actor as like Sarah Goldberg is. And so when you're the most, you know, seasoned actor in a scene, you kind of have to like take the lead. You have to lead that dance, and you have to kind of carry the team a little bit. Again, not to make it sound like Bill Hader doesn't know what he's doing or anything, but like she is the lead in those rooms. And so she has like a massive amount on her plate that she has to handle. And like, she handles it so well. And she just does some things that are they're just impressive. Like her ability to just cry on command is really impressive. A lot of actors can do that, but like a lot can't.
Yeah. That last scene with her and Barry in the finale is so good.
Yeah.
And it just holds on her face.
And with the character of Sally too, like I think that they really did lean into her like less likable side.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And the reason I think that they do that, because like she's always been this person, like we were talking about, she's always wanted to be a star, but it was, since it wasn't actually happening for her, there was something, because you've talked about this on other pods about the idea of just like youth, and they can be a little bit more unlikable because like you can see that they'll grow in the future. Like they'll get older one day and they'll become more wise. And so Sally like is kind of a little unlikable as a character, or realistic as a character or whatever. And it's because she doesn't have that thing yet. But then when she gets the thing, it's like, oh yeah,
you're like, oh, that's gross.
Yeah, that's who you are.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love the character.
Yeah. And I guess that's interesting. That's why Sally's most likable to me, at least in like the first couple seasons. Cause like, she's just kind of like struggling.
And she has a dream and she's working to achieve that. And she is talented. And so you're dreaming with her.
Which is super interesting. Cause in TV, you always hear like, never give the character what they want. And again, it's interesting that they're just like, no, we'll give Sally everything she wants in the first episode of season 1 or season
really
3,
fast,
like super fast. Like you're just like, oh my God. Like you're like, wait, did I miss something at the end of season 2?
Actually what she wants?
Exactly.
And that's kind of the difference between like old TV and like new TV, which is basically movies as TV.
Yeah.
Where like, we don't have to follow those conventions anymore, and we write for Barry, but you can tell that like Bill Hader is so much more interested in that stuff. He's like, okay, so like, why string it along for 8 seasons in this acting class and have like a kill of the week sort of a thing and then he goes to acting class with Kusno? Why do that? And why not just instead take the whole acting class, the whole like conceit of the show out of the show, make all these characters hate each other and not put them in the same rooms together for the whole season, and then give the characters like everything they could ever ask for and then still be disappointed by it, and then mounted like rage and anger and violence.
Yeah. I mean, I love a narrative structure over an episodic structure any day, because I think everything should have consequences. But there is an alternate universe where Barry, you know, is just this episodic television show where he has to kill someone every week. Yeah. There's like a motorcycle chase scene, and then after he like goes to an acting class and he's like, hey, I brought beignets. And everyone's like, oh, cool, Barry, thanks.
Thanks, Barry.
And then it works its way into his performance.
Yeah, exactly. Every week. And like, again, that would be a great sitcom. But is this a sitcom? You know, like this is on HBO for a reason, I guess. And again, it brings the characters into very interesting scenarios, which Let's talk about Fuchs a bit.
No.
Stephen Root, the best actor ever. Stephen Root is so good in this show and in general, and I'm glad he has like a leading part in something.
I love all the scenes, like the two of them when he's like rehabbing and he's out like in the middle of nowhere herding sheep.
Yeah, it's just it's such a funny idea to be like, yeah, Fuchs is like the worst character in the sense that like he is the most far gone and he's gonna get arrested, blah 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 blah.
No morals.
He has no morals. He like does whatever he wants, and it's so funny that at every turn where he like finds this new home. Again, Fuchs and Sally have like the most comedic stuff this season, and Fuchs's reoccurring thing this season, which is so funny, is that he like is banished somewhere, and then he finds this family of like these foreign people,
these herders of some sort,
herders of some sort that like nurse him back to health, and then he falls in love with like the youngest daughter of each one. And then it's like he's like, and then he just sees something with Barry, or he goes on a phone call with Barry, and he's like, fuck this, like I have to go back. Like, it's so funny, and it is also like Fuchs's biggest flaw as a character is that he just can't let things go.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Fuchs. And that's, again, that's the reason like Barry started this whole thing in the first place, is like, cause Fuchs wouldn't let him go. Fuchs would be like, no, you're really good at this. And like, you gotta, again, he says it in the season, he honed what Barry had into something really great and lucrative for him.
I just also want to shout out the music during those scenes.
Yeah.
The like swelling strings. It's so funny. I too love Stephen Root, and I too am very happy that he's in the show. Yeah. It was, like part of the season, like I mentioned moments ago, most of the characters don't really interact that much. Yeah.
Biggest issue with this season.
For sure. Yeah. And that's definitely the case with Fuchs, but his presence is still felt because he's able to like play the Kenneth Goulet bit and like send all of these people on at Barry, which definitely works for me. I think that stuff is really interesting. I love the fact that like they just keep coming, and you kind of realize through that it's like, wow, he really has killed a lot of people. Because I know going into season 3, there was a big concern about like how long can this be sustained, because like there's going to be an LA serial killer at some point.
Yeah.
And you can obviously make the justification that like, okay, these are criminals, so you can always just say it was like gang activity or whatever. But like, how long can this really go on where Barry's killing as many people, especially at the end of season 2 and the monastery. The monastery, yeah. It's like, how long can this actually go on? And this season you realize like, oh my God, yeah, for every like one person you killed, there's like potentially 2 to 8 people from that family that are going to come after him, and it's just mounting. It's like a video game.
The whole biker sequence is like, and again, I guess we can talk about that because Kenneth Goulet kind of set it up, but like that whole biking sequence is like, God damn, like that's, I don't know how LA, like that's
the thing too. Like, before we all lived in LA, like we all obviously had an awareness of like how movies got made, but I think it's more impressive now that we live in LA, where it's like, I know that freeway. I know they had to shut that down for a while, like days, to be able to shoot all of this.
It's like a little video from, I think, Variety, where they talked about how they filmed that scene, if anyone wants to check it out.
And just in terms of other content also, Bill Hader did the Prestige TV podcast with Sean Fennessy all season. And so after each episode, he would go on and break down the episodes, and he would talk really in depth about stuff that didn't make the cut or things that were almost different, and so that's just really interesting as well. But the motorcycle scene is really cool.
As much as I love David Lynch, I do appreciate directors and writers that like really explain and analyze like the work they've done. Like,
it's helpful.
I think Bill Hader does that. Jordan Peele does that a little too on the nose sometimes, but like it's really fun.
This is what this meant.
Yeah. There's a whole what is that on? Is it that on Variety? What is that on Hollywood Reporter? What is that?
I think it might have been one of those like notes on a scene.
Yeah, notes on a scene thing. I forgot what
maybe
like,
it was a Wired like autocomplete.
Yeah. But yeah, that if you haven't seen that Jordan Peele one, he literally explains all of Get Out, and it's really funny. And there's some lines where he's just like, they did not intend that, but I guess that could be it. He's like so casual about it. But so is Bill Hader in interviews. He's just like, I really like this.
Yeah, he's like, I like movies.
Yeah. So I really like this thing they do in movies, so I wanted to do it in my TV show.
But talking about the motorcycle scene, let's talk about the action throughout the whole season, because like it just keeps building and building and building. And like we thought Ronnie Lilly was going to be like the peak of like filmmaking for this show, but then like this season, every episode just keeps outdoing itself. Yeah, and you get multiple raids on the
just the compound, like the
greenhouse,
the Chechen greenhouse, like compound area. And like that's like Zero Dark 30 stuff where they go in at night. That one time they just fire off, and then the second time, and then the second time they go in and they really just destroy the place. They blow up a house this season. That was a funny bit with him being on the phone with some tech support.
Tech support for a bomb detonation.
Have you tried turning your Wi-Fi off?
Turning it off? Yeah, all the action, like it's pretty masterful direction.
Yeah, totally.
This is the first, like, you know, when you watch Ozark, that's when you go like, oh, Bateman is like a really competent director. Like he's not just an actor, he's like a really good director. And then it's the same thing for Hader in this, especially this season, where it's like, oh, he could actually make like action films or just any kind of film that he wants. He's really got the chops for it.
Yeah, I mean that bear sequence with NoHo Hank too was like insane. The only thing I wish you would have seen like the aftermath, because I think that's always the fun of those action sequences that you see off screen. Fargo does one in season 1 with Lauren Malvo. But again, those sequences are really nice where it's like it is an action sequence, but all of it is sound. And all of it is like one character's reaction to it. And no, Hank does such a good job in that sequence, especially Anthony Carrigan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's great in this season too, but
he probably got shortchanged the most because he's so unrelated to everything else, and also basically just comedic for most of the season.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, this is not a secret, but if you don't know, NoHo Hank was supposed to be killed off in the opening, in the pilot, but they liked him so much that they brought him back, and he's, again, one of the highlights of season 1 and 2. Unfortunately, again, he's not in this season too much, and he doesn't have stuff with the main story going on, really.
Yeah, this is the first time where you can feel the stretch of that character has like lived past their purpose.
Yeah.
Because now his arc this whole season was about Cristobal,
which also has nothing to do with
right. So he's fully like splintered off, and they can bring him back in season 4 in whatever way they want to, and I'm sure that they will. But yeah, it definitely was like, oh, okay, so now the characters have grown so much and changed so much and like moved in their different directions that like he really doesn't have anything to do with Barry. It almost felt like a stretch for him to bring Barry back into the mix, you know?
The Chechens aren't even really tied to the main story anymore.
No.
Or alive anymore.
Or alive. True.
Barry killed my bodies.
Barry killed my body. I don't want to talk about Barry. He killed my bodies. One of the funniest scenes.
Yeah.
Cristobal is great. That's all I'm going to say. I love that actor.
Right.
That performance is hilarious.
Yeah. It is. Again, it is a little disappointing that there was no big NoHo Hank moment, I think, of the season. Mm-hmm. Because again, some like the big moments he had this season were like serious, like the bear sequence at the end, or meeting up with Cristobal at the end.
50 with Cristobal.
But again, there's no 50-50 with Cristobal scene. Or
I think the standout for me was when he was like, "This is my first big interrogation." I'm like legit nervous.
Yeah, right. Again, that was the first couple episodes.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, just him doing that is
coming up with the Raven.
Yeah, the Raven. Was
yeah, but then after that, it's like he drifts further and further away from the story.
It's like just comic relief.
Yeah.
At this point,
the blow dart bit was really funny, but also like one of the broader bits where it's like, I can't believe like they're fitting this in with like Barry being dead and seeing all the people he's killed, you know?
Yeah. Like, yeah, it cuts from him being like, oh, okay, that is what I think it is, to like just Barry being on a beach with everyone he's killed.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Blow dart joke to Christopher Nolan meets Ingmar Bergman. Just this wild combo of things.
Michael Irby plays Cristobal.
Really good. Everybody on the show.
Congratulations.
Whoever the casting director of the show shouts out, you know.
He is in Fast 5.
Oh,
congratulations.
And Mayans MC.
Oh yeah, the Sons of Anarchy show.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, Sons of Anarchy prequel. Just one more thing on Bill Hader as a director. Like, he came out to Hollywood to become a director. That was like his goal, and then he found his way into comedy and then ended up on SNL. So it's almost the same thing as Jordan Peele, where it's like this was a big detour. It wasn't the intention. Like, Jordan Peele did not intend to come out and do sketch comedy, but like he had an aptitude for it and he did it. I just think that's quite I don't want to say like inspiring, because, you know, he's still in the field of work that he wants to be in, but like it's kind of cool when you see guys like Ridley Scott. They're just like work in ad agency until they're 42 and then they make a movie, you know?
Exactly.
And in a vaguely similar way, it's like, you know, you don't have to be tied to one specific thing. You know, Bill Hader can be Stefan on SNL, but also be like a very good television director.
Yeah. If anything, all your experiences like make it easier for you to do what you actually want to do, because you can take all of that. That's why like I left acting school like 20 years ago whenever we graduated high school, but no one knows how old we are. All the people watching the Fargo cast are like, how old are these guys? They just moved to LA?
I don't know why that just killed me. Wait,
20 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
The idea that no one knows how old we are here.
Speaking of, though, someone who's been around the block, Henry Winkler, ladies and gentlemen. What a guy. I think this is the best he's been in the series is this season.
Really damn good.
I think a lot of Cousineau in the first 2 seasons was like being blissfully just being ignorant of anything that's going on. Like Barry's like, you want to know something? And then he like tells his whole story to Cousineau. Right. And then Cousineau doesn't get it. He's like, wow, that's really good acting, Barry.
Use it.
Use it. But at the end of season 2, something I was really excited about is like the last shot of season 2 is Cousineau being like, oh my God.
Right.
Like he knows everything now. And this season does not disappoint with that. I think the first couple episodes with him playing cat and mouse with Barry is so exciting. And the last, I mean, we've been riffing on it, but the last sequence of him being like, I love you, Barry. Is so...
Say it again.
And then just his face in a fisheye lens is like so...
And then the music, beep boop, bop, beep boop.
But again, this is a real season for Cousineau as like a character who, again, similar to Sally, like knows everything now pretty much.
Yeah.
And is, again, like what repercussions does that have? And the finale really got me with Cousineau, where you're like, oh, like this is how Barry and Cousineau get back. Like this is where like it's fine. Like Moss is like a figure that is like so like evil that like he like makes Cousineau and Barry come back together fully and like everything's gonna be okay. And then they do the whole switch with you, and then there's that one look that Henry Winkler gives at I think it's his last close-up of the season, but like it's him like kind of smiling, kind of not. Like it's vague enough where you like don't know.
You can interpret it in several different ways.
Exactly. And they will in season 4 obviously, but like right now it's like a great like, okay, that's a great way to end the season with Cousineau, where it's like, was he like drained by Moss in such a way that like he just gave up everything, or did Moss convince him like, you're right, I did love Janice Moss and I don't know why I'm protecting Barry Berkman.
All right. He's so good in this show. I mean, it season 1, it was like a revelation. It's like, oh yeah, this is an incredible actor, and like what a career for an incredible actor. Yeah. And then season 2, more of the same. And then this season, he gets to flex some more chops. And it's a bold decision at the end of season 2 to be like, we're going to do away with everything that the show was set up to be. Start of season 3, acting class is gone already. Yeah. It's shut down. Cousineau and Barry, they hate each other. Or well, Barry doesn't hate Cousineau, but you know, they're at odds. Yeah. And now they can't live in the same space together. And the only way that they could figure out a way to do it is to have Barry go full psycho.
Yeah, and being like, you're going on auditions with me and we're like gonna figure this out.
and it's hilarious. I think it's before one of the cold, like before the Barry play it here. But it's where he's like, I think I figured out how to help Mr. Cousineau. and
Yeah. And that also bleeds into the Sally stuff where he's like, we're not saying the same thing. We're not saying the same thing. I'm like, and again, it's like he's like literally begging for Kusuno's life. He's like, I'm either gonna kill Mr. Kusuno right now, or he's gonna be in your show. Those are the only two options.
And I love that too, because like Barry is, and one of the things I've always loved about him, he is a dim guy. Like he's not like for all of his intelligence, like he is pretty like. He's like a strange dude, you know, he just like, he doesn't know really how to like shop very well. Like he doesn't know how to dress himself super well.
It's the bit that they've been marketing where he's like, he's in the store and he's just like doing like the classic 30-40 year old thing where they just, they record their text. Like they say their text through that. And then obviously the bit is just like, he has a different conversation that doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, he is sort of like this loaf, you know,
kind of aloof.
Yeah, but he has this talent.
Barry
for
Berkman
killing
and
people.
Jimmy Garoppolo,
like two
dim
and handsome.
Dim and handsome.
No, but but
again, it's finding these simple solutions for like way bigger problems. And the funny part is that the simple solution that he comes to, where it's like, I told them our story and they loved it, actually fixes Gene Cousineau's anything that was wrong with his career before that. Like it. Also, fucking, what's his face is in this season as Cousineau's agent, and he's so good. And he comes in and he's just like, Gene, this is big for us.
You
baby.
can't come into my house. You can't just break into my house.
A masterclass. You're teaching it. And then Cousineau's like, I'm listening. Just great stuff with I mean Cousineau does like all this stuff with him is just like very like old Hollywood-y. And just a blast to watch. I mean it's kind of on what we've been talking about lately. It's like it's how Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi talk to each other. It's just like, come on, baby, like we got this.
Yeah, we're doing another picture, baby. Also with Cousineau and Sally and like a lot of the characters this season, it's amazing how many parallels you can draw between characters if you just look hard enough, because like they set up this whole thing about Cousineau being an asshole, and they've talked about like situations where like he double crossed an actor back in Hollywood, and that's why he's not an actor anymore. He works as like a professional acting coach.
Joe Mantegna's in this season.
And Joe Mantegna's in this season. But that's the thing. So
Criminal Minds fame.
They're able to take that small detail from season 2 or in 1 and then explode that out and then draw the parallel to Barry's story, which is the idea of like your consequences haunt you and like, can you be redeemed? And then you have these two incredible like parallel stories that are running side by side of different levels of morality, but you know, they're similar nonetheless.
But it seems like Cousineau can be redeemed.
Yes, and he tries really hard. It's also though like the idea of like stardom is so important to all of these characters, and like, and you buy that they want to be stars and you want them to be stars, and then once they sort of get that, you realize like with Sally, it's like, oh, this is kind of like toxic in the way that Sally, like, it becomes pretty gross like once she gets what she wants. Cousineau also, like, he keeps apologizing to people, but like I forget the character's name, but she like calls the woman that
his old flame.
She like calls him out. She's like, you're not apologizing for us, you're apologizing for you. And I believe that. I believe that some of it's true also. I think that both are possible, but like, this and he doesn't want to send Barry to jail because he wants to maintain this career. Because if Barry goes to prison, that article that was written about him is kaput.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be like, oh Jesus, like this guy like worked with a serial killer,
with a mass murderer,
killed a cop.
Bring back a serial killer, and then
and so he selfishly is like, no, this is what I've always wanted. I'm willing to just like let this woman who I loved remain dead and buried, and have no consequence for the killer because I just want to be a star.
Yeah, true. But again, I think that might change at the end of the season. Well, again, we'll see where season 4 goes. It's very interesting. But again, it's that thing where like Cousineau this whole season was kind of like performing almost when he was like apologizing to people. Like that dinner sequence seems very performative, like overly so. Like obviously it's a show, they're all acting. So like,
what?
Yeah, I don't know if you know.
Jack, did you think this was a documentary?
Yeah.
I thought it was real. I thought we were watching the news.
Oh, yeah, sorry to disappoint. No, but like him being like, I am so sorry for like ruining your career. Like, that was on me. Yeah, and it's like, okay, like, come on, dude. But then at the end, I think there's this beautiful moment where he doesn't have to say anything, but in some way, I think Kusno is at peace at the end of the season, where he and again he gives like a great performance.
Yeah, his best performance.
Yeah, Gene can act. Kusno can act. Let me say that. But yeah, that last sequence with him and Barry was like, "Don't go in.
Don't go in."
Was that Rip Thorne's gun again?
Oh, I hope so. I thought that immediately.
That little throwing thing was so good too. Rip Thorne's gun.
So funny.
Thorne's gun that fell apart in the first episode.
Oh.
So good. I love that Rip Torn is canon in Barry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rip Torn existed in this universe.
Rip Torn and Joe Mantegna.
I actually like to think that because the pandemic definitely didn't happen in Barry, it seems.
Yeah.
What pandemic?
Exactly. And I'd like to think that Rip Torn is still alive in the Barry universe. So think about that.
Think about that.
In the vast ocean of the multiverse.
That's our final member. Rip Torn.
It's definitely a dodgeball Rip Torn.
Yeah.
You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Hello, Steven.
Throws a wrench.
Throws a wrench. Yeah.
The Illuminati.
Our group chat's name, this doesn't have to be in the cut, but our group chat's like profile picture is a picture of Rip Torn.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I always forget about that until I remember.
I forget about it until like I go to show someone something on my phone and the little bubble is just active, you know, for the
like,
messenger.
why do you have a picture of
an old guy?
Yeah,
looking crazy.
They're like, what is that? I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry.
Shout out to Rip Torn though. If you haven't seen Rip Torn in anything, like you should. And
Larry Sanders Show.
Larry Sanders Show, Men in Black. He's in 30 Rock too, a bit. But most importantly,
Barry.
Barry. No, I was just gonna say most importantly, he's in Freddy Got Fingered. And he plays his father in it, and he just keeps saying,
I love you, son.
I love your son. I'm proud of you. Proud. Anyways, back to Barry.
Yeah, I just have a couple more thoughts on just Bill Hader and Barry, the character. He is like broken this season.
Oh yeah,
like he is a sociopath and he's always been like a very strange character because of that. But like this season, he is like so lost, and like he's got the scruff and he's haggard, and the lines on his forehead are just getting, you know, that's just with age, obviously. But like it helps with the character.
Yeah, the pandemic also really helped too, because I think we haven't seen most actors for 2 years.
Yeah.
So when they come out with a new movie, it's like, oh, right.
Yeah, you're 2 years older.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
That's why every show came out this season here.
And I just wanted to say that I do think that this season he was able to showcase like his best acting, where like I've always thought he was amazing, but I didn't know he was capable of what he does towards the end of this last episode where Albert confronts him and he just breaks down.
Yeah.
He's incapable of saying anything. He just gets on his knees and starts freaking out. I thought that was one of the most powerful like performance moments in TV recently that I've seen.
Yeah.
It was so captivating and so strong and so like, you know, I don't want to sound like an asshole here, but like beyond like a TV comedy, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
sure.
it's venturing into the world of like, oh, this is something that would be in a PTA movie. This is something that like Daniel Day-Lewis would do, you
exactly.
know? Not
This
to be
is like
too
the
hyperbolic.
end of There Will Be Blood too.
Right. Yeah. It's like this is wild. Like this is so intense and like right for the character also. Like for where he's been all season.
And the thing is like I think obviously the first domino that drops is the Kusino stuff at the beginning of the season. But the rest of the season when everyone is after him and he gets poisoned and then he's like in this guy's car and he like the guy kills himself and then like just like everything he goes through is like all building up to this moment. And again, from his perspective, like Albert could just be a ghost. Like Albert is just like this because he hasn't seen Albert since
Albert got shot in the face.
Yeah, since Albert got shot in the face and he saved his life. But again, it's like that thing where, yeah, it's just like he has nothing more to say. He just can't keep doing that. And then all the Sally stuff too, where he's like, I don't want you to go there, like I don't want you to come with me because like I'm going somewhere.
Yeah, that was really powerful. He's like, I'm going to hell and I don't want you to go there. Also, the early stuff in the season, which they sort of dropped at some point, but like him envisioning the bullet holes in people's heads, that those would just pop up, and that was amazing. Sound design as well. But
yeah, there was no real end to that one. But again, it's something they can always come back to.
Totally. But yeah, at that, what I also love is like when he breaks down in that scene with Albert, most like sort of in a cliched hackney sort of way, normally it would be like, just do it, kill me. But he seems like he's terrified to die, which is why, because like, why else would he keep doing this stuff if not to stay alive? Because he is a sociopath, and that's all that really matters, is just maintaining the stasis, being alive, not going to prison and not dying,
and he keeps being like, don't please, he doesn't have anything to live for, but like also he doesn't want to die.
I think he's scared of where he's going.
Terrified of dying because he is going to go to hell, and he knows that. And that whole sequence was amazing too. Yeah. I think that this season was really captivating TV. It was, there were moments where I was scratching my head, which I think we could talk about now, but and it was, I think the one of the ones that sticks out for me is just like, I love the broad comedy stuff, but sometimes it was like the Vanessa Bayer scene. She's so funny in it, but it was like, oh, we're doing a Tim Robinson sketch for like 2 minutes.
For 2 minutes. And then it goes to Albert being like, who is this guy? Who's the Raven?
Who is he? Why are we going to the moon?
Actually, actually perfectly with the other, like the chief in that thing where he only is joke guy. But it's also like he doesn't get singles. He's just like ADR joke guy in the background of scenes.
Especially this last episode where he's like, last time we saw Albert was when he was breathing heavy and cocked his gun and laughed. That killed me.
I literally rewinded. I was like, that line is so funny. Because again, the end of the penultimate episode is Albert like going to like the camera and like cocking his gun and then like leaving, and you're like, oh shit, shit's about to go down. But then that also happened in the universe. So like they saw that. and I think what hits for that joke in particular is that's what that character has been doing all season. Right? He's just been saying really obvious stuff. So just making that really obvious is funny too. Yeah. Last time we saw Hubert, he was cocking his gun. He walked halfway through the office, cocked his gun, and left. But again, sometimes his comedy is a bit too broad, where he's like, no, it's the Raven. Yeah. Like, that guy's the Raven.
No, definitely wasn't Barry.
Yeah, definitely wasn't Barry Berkman. Barry Berkman did not do this.
Yeah. Yeah, so some of the broadness, like it all fits together, but it is sort of just, and I never felt like it was detracting from any of the drama that was occurring in the other scenes. But it just was like, it was a tonal dancing act that like had to be, figured out. Other stuff that we already talked about, but the characters are like, a lot of them just don't get to interact. And like, that's one of the best things about TV is like characters in rooms talking.
No, exactly. And I think this season kind of fixes it in a way, like going forward, like Fuchs and Barry are obviously going to be in the same like prison. If they aren't, that's going to just be a missed opportunity.
Yeah. There. Even if it's not realistic, it's just like, you kind of got to do that.
You got to do that. Like, Sally's going back to Joplin, and then like again, I think Moss is like kind of a main character now in a weird way, and Cousineau can like continue his acting stuff without like the shadow of Barry over him. But again, that was like a big issue I think with this season was like none of the main characters could talk to each other because they would either kill each other or like do something else. And again, we didn't even mention this yet, but Sally and Barry break up halfway through the season. And there's, and like, again, everything kind of is like shifted from the first 2 seasons, which again is bold, but sometimes there's some growing pains, and definitely like this season is just kind of growing pains. You know, they're going through puberty right now to become a man in the next season,
or a woman,
or a person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Let's not be too specific here.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. On another note, that's something that I don't think really worked, and I love this actor, so I'm like bummed about it. Elsie Fisher isn't like, again, I don't think she's distractingly bad in it, but she is just not as genuinely fun as she was in 8th grade, which again, this is a different project. So she doesn't have to be exactly like she was in 8th grade, but her character just feels shoehorned into it. It's not an issue with her as an actor. It's an issue with her writing this season.
Right. And haters talked a lot about how like most of that stuff came back in reshoots. Like that whole character was like very small initially, and then in reshoots they reshaped that whole thing and sort of created that arc of like Barry being like an abuser, you know, and he is, and he is, and he, like the way that he yells at Sally in that scene, and the way that he like doesn't really care about her, like really, like because he's a sociopath, and like the way that he does the thing where he's like, I could break into her house and I could take a picture of her while she's sleeping, you know,
just little things like switch her dog out to a slightly different looking dog.
All timer,
and honestly. Then her brain will just eat itself.
He's an abuser, and even if he's not like violent with her in the same way that her exes were, it's this season is smart enough to draw the parallels to be like, that's not the only form of abuse.
Yeah. Also, like Sally does have issues with men she dates, and it's like it's a reoccurring thing where it's like, okay, like she needs to find someone better for her.
Right. So because of that, I like the idea of the Elsie Fisher character, but I do think it's like a bit strong. I think because it comes in reshoots, they have to get it done quicker because like, you know, you can't just put her into the whole season. They have like a couple episode arc that they're going to give to her, and so in that time slot they kind of have to like pick up the pace a little bit, and so it feels a little bit like, honestly, as that was happening, I was like, this is going to be Barry's undoing. Like he's going to get canceled. Like, he's going to get canceled.
Wow, he thinks the cops are the only thing he has to fear, but
wait till he hears about the mob, the court of public opinion.
How can you cancel a person? You can't.
Barry Berkeley goes on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah, I don't understand why, like, what I did was bad.
I guess I'll take a hit.
Yeah.
And then the show writes itself.
Yeah, sure. No, I agree, though. I do think that, you know, it was a little, I like the idea, but the execution is a little bit.
And again, I think especially when you talk about reshoots, it's like, yeah, I think Sally needed that little extra push from someone that was like close to her.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have been anyone else besides like her daughter in the show.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So like it all makes sense on paper for sure. It just felt a little like shoehorned in. Because again, sometimes you come up with an idea after the fact and you're like, oh fuck, I wish I could have like 3 more drafts with this, but like you can't because you're shooting it right now because you shot this season already.
And also I think the issue is it's that's all that the Elsie Fisher character is.
Exactly. That's all she serves.
She doesn't get to be a character first and then like sees something and then she's like, oh, like I need to, like, this is a tonal shift for my character. And it's like, oh wow, like this is, like instead it's just like she's introduced, she's like, I'm really happy to be here, and then she sees Barry do the thing that he does,
like,
and she's
he's
like,
bad,
he's bad, and then it's that for the, which, you know, that's a natural and correct reaction, but like she didn't get to like live within the world for an episode or two in like a meaningful way to the point where I would be like, oh, this is a character that like I want to go down this path with.
Yeah. And to contrast that, I guess, and again, we're talking about issues, but I thought Janice's father this season was really good. I thought they introduced him pretty well with only showing his back occasionally. And just like, I don't know, it's really great because like it was kind of a thing where it's like, it was like a character that was gonna be revealed, and then every time like it would be like Fuchs is on the phone with him and it's like just his back and he's like, I heard you have like Kenneth Goulet, like I heard you have some like information about my like wife's murder or like my daughter's murder. And then he'd be like, yeah, no, I don't. And then it would just cut away and you'd be like, wow, who was that guy? Yeah. Like I only saw his silhouette. But then fully when like Fuchs is back in, like he like turns to the camera and it's like, okay, like now this character is unlocked kind of. And again, even in that last sequence with Barry, he's so, I don't know, there's just such a presence with some actors where you don't have to say a lot. But like a lot just, I mean, when he turns around and he's just kind of smiling.
Yeah.
And then all the cops come out, he's like, gotcha. Yeah. It's like, oh, we
did it. Boys, we got him.
We got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Very
also,
good.
The scene which, as I opened the door to let you into our apartment today, the scene that you were doing a bit of, did you love my daughter? Do you love Barry Berkman? Yeah. Like that scene is awesome. Like, and I love the repetition or the sort of, you know, that motif of being like say you love me or like tell the truth, where it's like Barry in the beginning of the season is like, say it again. Like, do you love me? And then Moss is like, did you love my daughter? It's like and they're both like military, those two characters. So it's like an emotionally manipulative tactic. Yeah. And like Moss is doing it as a way to like get to the truth, and like Barry's using it as a way to like just lie to himself.
Yeah. But again, it's that one of the most interesting dynamics in season 1 was the last standoff with Moss and Berkman or Barry. I don't know why I called him Berkman.
Two last names. Yeah.
But where he's like, no, we're like Janice, we're the same. Like this can just like end here. Like sometimes like you have to be gray. And then again, like Barry's flaw is like all the people he killed, but Moss's inherent flaw is that it's like she's a good person, you know? Yeah. And she's like Barry, I can't do that. Like I am an officer. Like I
gotta go to the police.
I gotta go to the police and arrest you. And then he's like, that's a bummer. And similarly, it's the same with Moss, where it's like, where this whole season they're building and it's like, oh, he's out for revenge. Like maybe he's gonna like, there's going to be a big final showdown with Barry. Like that's what you think just because like that's your stupid blockbuster brain going. But again, this is like in issues we've had, and I'm talking about like one of the best things of the season. Yeah, totally. But again, like the final standoff, and again, this is Moss's father, like, and they build it nicely with being like, he will fuck your mind up. Like he will destroy you. But again, like he is a man of honor, and the best way to get back at Barry for killing his daughter is not killing him. It is just arresting him and having Barry have to deal with the consequences, you know?
Totally. Yeah. I think all of his stuff was really good. Other stuff that maybe didn't work for us though.
I don't know how we fell down that rabbit hole.
That's the thing is the show's so good. Even as you go down a rabbit hole that might not be as interesting, it leads you to something else that was really, really interesting.
That wasn't the question, Tyler.
But it was good. I'm glad we talked about it.
My only issue that you guys haven't mentioned so far is that the show's not Succession.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Just a very small big picture thing. Just in the streaming wars as they continue to rage on. HBO Max, you know, we've shilled so hard for them in the past, but like they really do have the best lineup of like because obviously HBO has just always had the best lineup of television, but you have like blockbuster level hits every season of the year. Succession, Euphoria, Barry. It's just going to keep going. And then you have like smaller hits that are like really high quality, like We Own the City or Station 11, things that don't have like a mass appeal, but like are just critically dazzling, like the best of television.
Yeah, I'm probably going to cancel my Netflix subscription soon.
It's getting to that point.
There's not a lot of stuff coming out on Netflix. I think I'm going to swap it out for Apple TV and give that a try.
Yeah, it's looking that way.
It's looking like that's the direction we're heading.
I think I'll always keep Netflix just because they will always have like...
And you don't pay for any of them.
No,
so.
Yeah, that's true. But they always have a Scorsese movie at the end of the year, or they always have a Cuarón movie at the end of the year. You know, they'll always get like they'll have Power of the Dog,
Best Picture type of movie at the end of the year.
They'll always get a couple of those, and they'll have at least a couple of series. Yeah. But HBO Max is so steady and consistent. Every like Sunday night they have a great lineup.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's just like think about like the best shows of the last like 20 years. It's like all HBO, like
totally
Sopranos, The Wire, Game of Thrones, Barry.
And think about this also, over the last 20 years, the best shows that have been on TV have mostly been about anti-heroes.
Yeah.
I think that this season of Barry sort of inverts that a little bit, where it's like he's no longer an anti-hero. He's literally just like a bad guy now.
Yeah, he's a bad guy.
And we're always going to root for him, obviously. So technically, sure, still an anti-hero, but like not really. Like now at this point, like, because it took until the final season of Breaking Bad for you to be like, oh, Walt is the bad guy. Like it's the last couple episodes where he steals his daughter and like, he does all this horrible shit and he kills some important characters. And
no spoilers.
But it's like, oh wow, yeah, he's fully broken bad now. And there's moments throughout the whole series where you feel that, obviously, but like Barry does it so early.
Yeah, and again, even when Albert's like saying like, you're not a bad guy, and it's like, no, he is.
Yeah.
Like, and he knows it. Like,
not a good guy,
because he's like, you got to stop starting now. It's like Barry's been saying that for 2 seasons, dude.
Yep.
Like,
there's an interesting thing about that, about like sort of this like military brotherhood also that I think is interesting. I don't think they dip their toe too much into it, but there is a consistent thing throughout the 3 seasons of just like military's kind of wild, you know?
Yeah, it's like cops.
And I will say, an issue that like I had with the first couple seasons, especially with season 2, was I felt like whenever there was like a big, like kind of side character that was like a force against Barry, he would just kind of immediately kill them. Kind of like think Esther. Was that?
Sounds,
whatever. What were they? The Cambodians? Is that what they were?
Yeah.
What were they?
That came in and then like Barry like killed everyone in the monastery. And I feel like Esther was built up in season 2 and then did nothing with. And similarly, that did happen with Crystal Ball's wife too. Yeah. Which I was kind of disappointed with, but it didn't surprise me. But what I appreciate was like characters like Albert and Moss are like still around. And again, who knows? They can come back, they can't, whatever works. But like, it's like, oh, cool. Like there's some like more characters that aren't just like Fuchs, Barry, Sally, and Cousineau, Those are the 4 leads of the series. And NoHo Hank, the 5 leads.
Right. And I think that was really important for the season 2, because like, it's like Barry can't kill them all. You can't get them all. Like
exactly.
he can't just erase all of his problems with a gun.
Yeah, with a gun.
Like someone's going to survive. And someone's going to get back to him. And at some point, he's going to get caught. And I think what's impressive, again, we talked about this earlier, but like they could have run this back for 8 seasons and it could have been a sitcom and it could have been very funny. And like Bill Hader could have had a very charming little run of a comedy series. But no, he was like, let's just get to the finish line. Yeah. And like, I can't see Barry being more than 5 seasons. I wouldn't be shocked if they were like 4th season is the last one.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of.
Yeah.
Want to talk about that a bit?
No.
I'm good.
Yeah, what do we want from season 4?
It to be good.
Yeah.
Whatever they want.
Exactly.
Obviously.
That's why I don't love doing predictions about shows that I enjoy, because I want that's their job.
I shouldn't say prediction. I should say like stuff we're like looking forward to in the new season. Like something I'm looking forward to is just like the fact that characters can actually start talking to each other again. And also this new dynamic with like Cousineau and Barry. Like, because I feel like in their whole relationship, Barry has typically had the upper hand, because like, oh yeah, like he can kill Cousineau. Like obviously he's like friends with Cousineau, but like now it's like, is like Cousineau going to visit Barry in jail? Like how long is Barry going to be in jail for? Is he going to escape? Like,
right? Do they just skip right ahead to the end of how long is he going to be in prison for?
Right.
Like are they getting him just on the Moss charge, or are they getting him on other charges as well?
Yeah, because like again,
getting him on anything.
Yeah, does he even go to prison?
Yeah, is the only thing he's getting on is attempted murder.
But it's Rip Thorne's gun, so it's not even a real gun.
Yeah.
That's a good detail. That would actually be important, yeah. And then guess who comes in to be his lawyer? Kenneth Goulet.
Oh, okay, cool.
He wants him from... No. But no, yeah, I that's actually a huge question that I had also. I was like, well, how long is he going to be in prison if he goes? Mm-hmm. Does he go? Does something... Because like the show has, especially this season, it's like it's gone to the point of no return and then kind of like danced around it for a little while and then come back to it.
Yeah.
And so that's possible with this also. It could be like he's in the car and then they're like, it wasn't even a real gun. We can get him on breaking and entering. We don't really have the proof that he killed Moss.
Yeah.
Like, we can't really do anything. That would be kind of interesting. And then it's like everyone knows that he did it, but he, you know, he doesn't really face the consequence.
Yeah, and again, it's that thing where it's like Kenneth, like if you think about it this way, like Kenneth Goulet just like convinced everyone that like Barry Berkman did this. Right. But like, again, no one has like any proof because Barry's like very clean with his kills. And like he made it look like Chris killed himself. Like,
right.
And there's nothing they can get on him with anything, pretty much.
And he didn't admit anything to Albert either. And it seems like Albert's kind of going to just let it slide, probably.
Yeah, like Albert saw like a body, but that was like it.
Yeah.
But again, Barry didn't even kill that person, like actually.
So they can get him on some small charges, but not necessarily the big ones.
Yeah, yeah. And again, we could be completely wrong. And next season, they write themselves into a corner and they always write themselves out. So
yeah, he could be in prison for 15 years. And then we start 15 years later and he's like very old.
It's not going to come out for another like 4 years.
Kuzno's dead.
Yeah, Kuzno's dead.
Fuchs is dead.
I also am just really happy that they've committed to Kuzno and like Fuchs being like main characters in this series, because like I feel like you get older actors and you're like, oh, you can't have them on the series that long, like they kill them off, or like they just have like, you know, they just have them be away from the main story. But like it's really cool that Stephen Root and Kuzno and Henry Winkler have like main roles on this show, and they're gonna be in the whole series, like obviously. I think this season was the crux of that, because last season it was like, well, we'll see what happens in season 3, but now it's like, okay, they're committed to Fuchs and Kuzno, so I'm excited.
And they both had points where they could have written them out of the show, but they brought them back because they know that those are huge parts of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Really amazing. I love this season.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
It remains just like one of the best shows on TV. I look forward to season 4. I look forward to, even though no one else cares about this, I look forward to the Emmys campaign, because it's a really interesting year, because final season of Better Call Saul, you know, Bob Odenkirk's going to get nominated. You know, Bill Hader's going to get nominated. You know that they're going to nominate Bateman for the last season of Ozark.
What about What We Do in the Shadows?
What We Do in the Shadows is coming back so soon, Tyler. Oh my goodness.
We're doing it again, huh?
We have to do it again. Yeah. There's no choice.
That's so weird. I feel like we just did that.
I was just, this is for the listeners too.
Yeah.
This is for the listeners.
I saw that the trailer came out and it's like, oh, it's coming back in July. And I was like, that's impossible. And then I looked back at like when our last review was, and it was like 9 months ago. And I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But I'm so used to TV taking like 2+ years now to get a season now, because of like Atlanta, because of Barry.
Also because of COVID.
COVID had a huge impact on that as well.
Like you're like, oh, right. The shows come out.
Yeah. And because it used to just be like shows would turn around so fast. There was barely an off season for television shows. But now it's like we have so much time in between seasons. But to have What We Do in the Shadows, the king of TV comedy, come back.
Yeah.
Feels good, baby.
We're also making art now.
Making art now. And just wait till you meet a little guy.
Named Robert Duncan.
Robert Duncan. All right. See you guys. That's it. Barry killed my bodies.
I don't want to talk about Barry. He killed my baddies.